I purchased the Bulova A-15 2 years ago to this month, and it's one of my highest viewed videos at over 22,000 hits. I feel like the quality of my videos has improved a little bit since then, and I thought you might want a long-term review in case you were looking to purchase one of these for yourself. I mean, it is an attractive option, as this historically inspired pilot's watch that once retailed for $700 can now be had all day, every day for $300 if you know where to look. So, if that describes you, then buckle up as I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly after 2 years of owning the Bulova A-15. Now, if you aren't familiar with the A-15, then a quick history behind this watch begins in World War II, as the Allied forces were looking for a new and reliable time and timing device for their pilots. Bulova came up with the A-15 prototype and made 500 of them, which they handed out to various pilots. If you snag one of those in good condition for a reasonable amount of money, then you are a lucky individual, because ultimately this model was not adopted by the military forces, settling instead for the simpler, cheaper A-11 hack. Back before the world became familiar with pandemic lockdowns and mask mandates, Bulova launched a recreation of that notable prototype. To the best of my knowledge, this is the second time that Bulova has reissued the A-15, although both have notable differences from the original. Focusing on the 2020 model, the main differences will be size, crystal, color, and of course, the movement. The movement in this $300 watch is a Miyota 82S6, which is the newer hacking and hand-winding version of Citizen's entry-level automatic movements. And this is my first and biggest nitpick with this watch. Bulova, which is owned by Citizen, could have for just a few more dollars put in a high beat and far more reliable 9000 series movement, but instead chose to throw their most basic movement on a $700 watch, which is probably why you can find these all over the place for less than half off 2 years later. Maybe Bulova has been taking notes from Invicta. The rest of the specs, however, are pretty good. 316L stainless steel case, sapphire crystal, unique 3-crown elapsed time interior mechanism, which may have been handy for pilots back in World War II, but serves me just fine for timing when my lasagna needs to come out of the oven. All kidding aside, it is actually a really robust and functional complication. You have to give their designers credit for a simple, attractive, and functional timing mechanism. The crown at 2 rotates the stepped outer minute scale, sort of like a compressor-style dive bezel. I'm sure it could be used in a manner of creative ways, but the most obvious application is tracking elapsed time from a given point. The crown at 4 rotates the hours disc just inside the rotating minute scale. Like a 12-hour bezel, this could be used to track the time in another time zone if you were so inclined. But mostly, I use these crowns multiple times a day to realign the triangles at 12, since even a shirt cuff can move them out of alignment ever so slightly, which really is my second biggest nitpick after the choice of movement. Looking closer at the dial, you will notice that it is full. Between the triple crown complication and the yellow military markings, not to mention the large railroad chapter ring, every millimeter of the dial is filled with text or timing markings. But to me, it works. It does not feel cluttered, and everything is well balanced. The exclusion of a date complication helps this quite a bit, as does the yellow 24-hour markings, which guides your eye outward to the more relevant information. After all, if I need to know if it's nighttime or daytime, I can always look outside. The case is a bit larger than a standard field watch at 42 millimeters, but is certainly not overly large for a pilot's watch, which traditionally ranges up to 50 millimeters and more. It wears smaller than that too, with a sloping fixed polished bezel and a surprisingly small dial when you remove it from the outer rings. Although it is 50 millimeters lug to lug, so take that into account if you have a smaller wrist. But the lugs are a common 20 millimeters, which means all those straps in your drawer are going to fit this little slice of aviation history just fine. It is, though, a bit chunky at 14 millimeters tall, but some of that is a gently domed sapphire crystal, and some of that is just styling. It has presence. It screams vintage pilot's watch. It does not pretend to be a modern svelte 36mm sports watch. And so, it is a good thing that the case finishing is exceptionally well done. This is a step up from many watches in this price category. That is, until you wear it. And then we're talking Smudge City, followed by Scratch Town via knocks on every door jam boulevard. Which means, if you buy this watch and you actually wear it, you're going to want to also purchase some Cape Cod cloth alongside it. Now the strap is awesome. I swapped it out, but I didn't need to. I simply have a strap habit that I can never satisfy. It's a problem. I'm seeking help. And the loom stinks. It just does. I mean, it looks cool for about 20 seconds, and then, like the Star Wars prequels, it just leaves you disappointed. As for the QC issues, I've only had one. Very recently, I noticed a large speck of something under the dial. In my first attempt to shoot the watch, it stuck out like a sore thumb. It was so bad that for this video, I had to take it apart and actually clean it. I found a surprising amount of dust and lint on the crystal. Fortunately, it comes apart really easily if you're careful with the gasket and the 4 tiny screws. But overall, I really like this watch. I'm glad that I purchased it. The movement bugs me when I think about it, but since I swap my watches daily, I don't even really know what kind of accuracy this thing is keeping after 2 years. Enough to keep me on time throughout the day. That's all I need to know. Yes, I have to realign those triangles a couple times a day. That just gives me an excuse to play with the watch. It takes all of 6 seconds. And yes, it gets pretty scratched up, which may be the one nitpick that really genuinely bothers me. But maybe if I didn't swing my arms around like a nearsighted gorilla, this wouldn't happen so much. Plus, I can fix it fairly easily if I want to. So, after 2 years, I still give 2 thumbs up to the Bulova A-15. It is fun and funky and has a historical military connection, and at the end of the day, it's just a cool, affordable watch. But of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So why don't you tell me what you think about this watch in the comments below? Right after you like and subscribe, of course. Oh, and if you don't like the way I say Bulova, well, you can kiss my